Welcome to At the Helm with Adventure Man Dan. Let's start the adventure. Hello and welcome to the second episode of At the Helm, the podcast where I talk about all aspects of the adventure lifestyle. I'm so very honored for you guys to be joining me here for the second episode. Today is September 24th, 2020. I'm recording from my editing station aboard Adventureborn, currently docked in Fort Pierce, Florida. Alright, so today I'm going to be discussing how I afford traveling around the world and the adventure lifestyle. This is something I've been getting asked for quite some time. Many people ask me, how is somebody as young as me traveling around the world? How do you afford to do this? And it's a great question because many people don't get out to do what I'm doing, and travel as far as I'm going until they're, in their 50s and 60s, which is fine, but I'd love to help people get out sooner, or maybe you are in your 50s and 60s, but you're looking for other ways to get out there and traveling. This is the podcast for you. I'm going to dive into all the details because you don't want to get to the end of your life with regret, thinking you wish you had gotten out there. It is 100% worth it and totally doable, so we're going to dive right into it. Now, I also say affording the adventure lifestyle because that's really what this is. I don't just go traveling. I've made this into my entire lifestyle. So it's something that I don't just do on the weekends. I do this 24/7, 365, including holidays, but we'll dive more into that later on in the video. So first off, how do I afford traveling around the world? I'm going to break that down into 8 categories, just kind of an arbitrary number, but I want to give you guys something you can wrap your head around. So my 8 categories are this. 1, developing or flat out adopting a minimalistic lifestyle. 2, wake up, work, save, sleep, repeat. 3, no more living for the weekend. Push further, live for the month, live for the year. 4, put yourself out there and make connections. 5, uncomfortable travel is cheap for a reason. 6, no more going out, eating out, or going to the clubs. 7, no more recreational substances. A lot of you may struggle with this one. And 8, alternative ways to travel, my favorite. So, number 1, developing or flat out adopting a minimalistic lifestyle. This goes hand in hand with this whole podcast theme, which is it takes real, true grit. It's not glamorous. It's definitely not Instagram worthy. By the way, I hate Instagram's unrealistic expectation of just life in general. This means, cutting out everything in your life that you don't need, little things, whatever it may be. Dive into that a little bit more as we go through some of these other numbers here. Finding cheaper places to live would be a great example. You don't need a 5,000 square foot house. It's ridiculous. If you do happen to own a big home, rent out the room, share your living space, or better yet, move into a smaller one. I've lived, a couple years in minivans or in an RV. Any way you have to do it. I've been relatively homeless, but homeless people, they don't pay rent. I sure didn't. So it's a great way to just kind of get by and save money as you can. You probably don't need new clothes. You definitely shouldn't be shopping for new clothes. Salvation Army, Goodwill, they've got some great stuff there. For the ladies, makeup, you don't need it. You're beautiful just the way you are. Seriously, don't put makeup on. That's a huge waste of money. And there's some more of these references throughout my website if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, www.adventuremandan.life. But that kind of just encompasses the general idea of be a minimalist. You don't need much, especially the American way of life, for instance. There's just so much that you don't need. I'm constantly selling things. The second it doesn't have a purpose on my boat or when I was in the RV or in a minivan, it was gone. I just didn't need it. So that's number 1, adopting a minimalistic lifestyle. Number 2, wake up, work, save, sleep, repeat. This is the ugly one, folks. This is just doing the grind every single day. You pick a job, something you can make some decent money at. I've done security. I've been a waiter. Waitering, actually, I've made a lot of good money doing that, especially in tips. And I notice a lot of other waiters, waitresses don't seem to have as much money. And it's not because they don't make as much as I do, but they go drinking afterwards. I don't drink. And that's a great way to save money right there, but that's also for another topic. But just being able to wake up and go to work and just do it, and it sucks. It absolutely does. This is why it's not Instagram worthy at all, but it's what you got to do if you're not, bringing in 6 figures. I mean, I think the most money I've ever made in a year was probably quite well under $50,000, which that's, I think, the median income for someone in the United States. So just kind of consider that if you think about how much money you're making, all right, well, you shouldn't be making car payments. You should be buying a used car. And, you don't need to buy a house. You can rent something really cheap, or maybe even live out of a minivan. Any way you can do it, but just wake up, go to work, save money, go back to sleep, repeat it, and do that until you have that nest egg so you can leave. It's just kind of one of the many ways that you can go about doing this. So number 3, no more living for the weekend, push further than that. This goes hand in hand with, well, sort of a lot of these other topics here, but it's the whole idea of pushing for a long-term goal. Most people work 5 days a week, and then when the weekend comes, you go to the restaurant, you go out with friends, you go to a concert, and that's great and that's fun, but you are choosing that comfortable, fun for the whole week lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you're not making a ton of money and you're trying to do things on the cheap, you're probably not going to be able to afford to go travel out somewhere far. I don't ever get to do any of that stuff. Honestly, my week-to-week, day-to-day looks really, really boring, and most people wouldn't want to do it. But most people would like to go where I've gone and do some of the things that I've done. So try to consider that as you're going through your week. And, the weekend's coming up and you're like, instead of going out to the movies, why not stay in? Invite some friends over, watch movies around the house or whatever you have to do. And one more topic kind of going on with this, not living for the weekend, but to push further, is the concept of delayed gratification. This is a idea that someone can wait longer before getting the reward for their work. And studies and just common sense have shown people who can go that much further before receiving a reward for their work, they can essentially get a much bigger reward in the end. They can go that much further. And every bit further you can go is going to end up in maybe further traveling, maybe traveling to a further off destination, or when you do get there, being able to have more fun. So that's number 3, not living for the weekend, push further. Moving on, number 4. Put yourself out there and make connections. This one is near and dear to my heart for sure. As you can tell, because I have a podcast, I'm a bit of a talker. Certainly throughout my life, that hasn't always been a good thing, but being able to just walk up to somebody and say, hey, hi, I'm Daniel, Adventure Man Dan, this is what I do. I've definitely gotten laughed at, no doubt, and I definitely deserved it a couple times, but it's opened up doors for me. People that were just interested in me, or people that ended up helping me out while I was on the way. Even the entire concept of this Adventure Man Dan brand that I put together, it was just to make connections. Those connections ended up with people I would go spearfishing with, mentors that taught me how to sail, having a place to sleep, or people that would help feed me a little bit, or people that would, point me in the right direction. All those things have made a huge difference. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you are at searching on the web. You need to make connections. It's people that know where things are at. It's people that can really teach you the things that aren't written, that aren't in a video and aren't on a podcast, to be honest. Those locals, those ones that have like the local knowledge of the area, and it's well worth its weight in gold. I see a lot of people, when I was traveling around the world in hostels, and they didn't really talk to anybody else, versus I've met people in hostel and maybe they introduced me to somebody else and I kept going down the line, but it's always worth it. Put yourself out there. I send out a lot of emails, send out a lot of messages. I mean, heck, I went to South Africa and I wouldn't have gone there if I hadn't messaged a guy and said, hey, I love your spearfishing photos, and I'd really like it if maybe we could connect. I'd like to come over. I know nothing about your country, yada, yada. And that right there was probably worth, $5,000 if you think about hotels and taxis, and maybe even if I had taken a charter or something to go spearfishing instead. Well worth it. Don't be shy. Put yourself out there. If somebody doesn't like you, don't hang around. Be like, hey, have a nice day. I'm not for you. Totally fine. Catch you later. So that's number 4. Put yourself out there and make connections. Number 5, uncomfortable travel is cheap for a reason. This is probably actually my least favorite one. For instance, when I was traveling around Europe, I spent so little money, and I actually do kind of regret it on that one. In general, though, it is a good idea. I mean, if you're taking a first class flight, or if you're traveling to hotels and things like that, it is very comfortable, but it's comfortable at the expense of your wallet. If you're like me and you need to be traveling on a budget, cheap flights, I've never stayed in a hotel. Maybe I've stayed in a motel, I think once maybe when I started traveling. And I realized pretty quickly, I just looked at the bill and I was like, man, I could sleep on the sidewalk for free. I mean, that's pretty cheap. But 6 a.m. flights, you have to be at the airport at 3 a.m. They're cheap for a reason. Decide if that's how you want to do it. There has been a few times, like I said, where I wish I had taken a flight at a normal time, but instead I took one at like 3 a.m. And I wish I hadn't, because you do end up losing a day usually. You get up so early, your body is so fatigued. And that's why now I prefer to be, on a sailboat, or I recommend to so many people the van life. The van life is great, dollar per dollar, really hard to beat. But uncomfortable travel, you got to do it sometimes. It's cheap for a reason. So moving on, we got number 6. No going out to eat, and not going out to the clubs. All right, now, if your weekly plan is to go out to the clubs, saving money is probably not a priority for you in any way. It probably comes as no surprise to anybody that I don't go out to the clubs. When I was traveling around the world, I meat some nice ladies, at the hostel maybe, and I might do it, just to kind of go out with them, but obviously not drinking, wasn't spending any money. It is a lot of fun, and it can be, a good way to just meet people, but a lot of times you're meeting drinking friends, and if you're going out to eat, that's great. You're going with friends you've already established, but you could be eating at home. You could be cooking for them. And just all three of these, going out to eat and going out to the clubs, it doesn't matter if you're going out to a show, whatever, you're spending a lot of money. Get a good internet connection at home, watch movies for free if you can, watch YouTube channels, get to see that kind of stuff. But it's a really simple thing, but I can't tell you how many people that don't like to cook at home. That's such a big money saver right there. I have become a professional at cooking ramen noodle. Very simple, very easy ramen noodle recipe for you guys. A little freebie here. Boil up some water, cut some green scallions, green onions, scallions into it, and then put your little packet, maybe like half the salt packet into it. Add some herbs and spices as you like. I usually do some thyme, maybe some rosemary or something. And then once the water does come to a boil, you almost have more of a broth than a soup. And then I'll throw the actual ramen noodle into it to cook, as well as I'll crack a couple eggs. That gives it some protein. Super cheap meal. That has gotten me through a lot of nights. Little things like that make a really big difference. It's kind of this whole, what is your daily routine like that will really save you money in the end? A lot of people go out every morning for Starbucks. That's going out too. If you're paying for that convenience, that's something you should be doing yourself. Coffee is coffee. You want the caffeine. I get that Starbucks tastes really good, but you really need the caffeine. That's what you're going for. So instead of paying $10 for a cup of coffee, sometimes I know some of you guys want some really crazy things. Don't do that. Make it at home. How much does Folgers cost? Probably not a lot. And you could probably go with an off-brand for that. So that was number 6. Just no going out to eat, no clubs. Save your money. Saving money is really just as important as making money, because it doesn't matter how much money you make if you're just spending it all, Moving on, number 7. This is a big one that has been a little more natural for me, but number 7 is no recreational substances. This means, it's going to be a tough one for you guys, no beer, no wine, no liquor, no cigarettes, no weed, no nothing. The human body is perfectly capable of being happy and having a good time without those substances. And again, I know I'm definitely in the minority on this one. Most people drink. Most people smoke. Most people have a vice. Make your vice traveling. Make your vice adrenaline rushes. I love instead saving up. I mean, you think about how much money people spend on cigarettes. In a month, easily, I could get a new spear gun, a new carbon fiber fins, maybe a new kiteboarding kite. Maybe they're pretty expensive. But you think about how much money you could save, and it's just so much well worth it. And if you do have to drink, going out to drink, that's just like adding convenience on something that you already don't need. Besides the health factor is a whole other thing. But it is just such a way to burn through your money. It's really not worth it. So that's number 7. It's pretty cut and dry. If you really want to save money, cut out the recreational substances, and they come in all shapes and sizes. So moving on, number 8, alternative ways to travel. This one's my favorite. So got a bit of a list here going for this, and we're going to start off with Couchsurfing. Couchsurfing, if you guys take away anything from this video, it's that Couchsurfing is amazing. You travel to a distant place and you get a free place to stay, maybe even a free meal or two. It completely depends on your host. But if you haven't checked out Couchsurfing yet, I highly recommend it. I made a page for myself before I left to go around the world. Back when I was staying in San Diego, I had a house there. It was really easy for me. I made a profile, hosted a bunch of people, That's what the site's all about, is hosting people for free. So that way you can kind of, well, help them to travel. And then you could also, get hosted as you go out there, or you could meet up with other travelers. It's just a great thing. I know COVID's going to, make this a little more complicated, but I highly recommend it. Couchsurfing.com. Check out the website. They've got an app. They've got it all. It's really, really good. You build up references from just being a good traveler with other people. And by that, you shoot them a message, hey, I'm going to be in, I think the last place I went to was Boston. And, because of my photos and because of my references, I only sent out maybe 5 messages to 5 different hosts saying like, hey, would you be able to host me for, I think I was looking to be hosted for like 3 or 4 days. And I think 2 of them said no, but they wanted to meet up. And then 3 people said yes. And I had to actually choose who I was going to stay with. And then those other people still wanted to meet up. Especially if you're a solo traveler, which obviously I am most of the time, it's a really good way too to feel like you are connecting with more people as well. I mean, these are locals that'll show you the area, so they might take you to some place you would have never found on your own. That's something I just absolutely love about it. There are definitely a few downsides to it. Booking a hotel just costs you money. That's it. You don't have to go through any work. But couch surfing, you do have to be a guest and you have to kind of be on your best behavior. I know for some of you that might be easy. For others of you, it might be a little more difficult. I get that. But it's just so much. It's just so well worth it. I really recommend it. Couchsurfing.com. Please go check it out if you want to travel on the cheap. Can't recommend enough. Next one I haven't done, but I wish I knew about when I was traveling, which is Workaway. It's a website with all sorts of different deals going on it, and it's very simple. It kind of like woofing. It's, somebody, maybe it's like a mom and pop that have like a bed and breakfast, and they say, hey, if you come here and work for, 6 hours or 10 hours for the week, you'll have a free place to stay and maybe free food, whatever goes with it. And this is a really great way. So maybe you don't have a huge bank account. Maybe you haven't been able to get a job to save up money. Maybe it's been really tough. This is a great way to just get up and go. And a lot of times I hear about people doing this and eventually getting a paid position perhaps, or finding a paid position nearby. And that kind of segues me into a working holiday. Something, again, I didn't really know about till I got to New Zealand. I saw just how many young German travelers there were, especially people from all countries, but just a lot of Germans. And, they would get a holiday working visa and they would go work, it might be in an orchard, usually agriculture related. I notice a lot in New Zealand and Australia. So it varies from country to country. But the whole idea, of what they were all doing is pretty simple. They would work for, probably like 3 months, and then they would go travel the country for 3 months. And I think that was a really, really good way to do it. Many of them became close to their hosts or their sponsors, I think they call them. So that was a really good way to do it. The next way that I really recommend is crewing on board a yacht. And this could be paid or unpaid. If you're looking to get paid to be crew on a yacht, you got to know your stuff. Or it's got to be there's no other way to say it. It's got to be a crap boat. I have been paid and unpaid crew. The only reason I really got to get paid, though, was because my mentor was a skipper, I think. I definitely proved my worth on it. I provisioned for the entire trip for everyone. I think there was 8 of us on the trip. It was a 7-day voyage, Fort Lauderdale, Florida to Newport, Rhode Island. So that was some good ocean time for me as well. And I got paid like $100 a day. Plus my expenses were covered, which was great. But that's not necessarily realistic. And if you're getting paid, usually you're getting paid to work, so you're not going to enjoy it as much. But it's a great precursor, perhaps, to your own sailing adventures or however you're getting out there. The other way that would be good to travel, which this is a bit of a advertisement, on my own side, but be unpaid crew. I'm always looking for crew that can help me out with multimedia stuff. But in general, you find a lot of boats out there that are just looking for somebody else to help them sail the boat, maybe move the boat from one location to another. These arrangements vary greatly. And I'm going to do a future video on this, on how to be good crew, how to find crew, what to avoid, if you're on either side of the captain or as the crew. But it's another really great option, and you're going to get to see the world in a really unique way. Moving on, I've heard of people being an au pair or a nanny. I've heard of people being an au pair on a boat, on a yacht. That is a very nice gig if you can get that. That's usually available only to women, I've noticed. I haven't ever heard of a guy being like that. Moving on from there, there's always some sort of volunteering work that you could be doing someplace as an alternative way to travel. Maybe it is donating your time and your effort for like a hurricane relief effort, like with Team Rubicon, for instance. I know they'll often pay for your travel and like your accommodations while you're there. That's not so much traveling as it is going someplace to do work though. But I do find that when you travel someplace and you have a sense of purpose, as opposed to just showing up someplace, having that sense of purpose really makes it enjoyable wherever you are. And I've always enjoyed that. Probably my favorite way to travel next would be the van life. Get a minivan, take the seats out, put a bed in the back, put something in the, where the hatch folds up so you can cook, stow everything else underneath the bed. In my opinion, dollar for dollar, it's the best way. You have a place to keep all of your gear. So nobody, when you go to a hostel, somebody might steal something from you. It's very, very common. In a minivan, it's called car theft, and I believe it's a felony, so most people avoid it. You have your transportation set up. You have a place to sleep ready to go. Oftentimes, if you do it right, you have a place to cook as well. I really fell in love with this when I got to New Zealand. I got a backpacker minivan for, I think it was 1,900 New Zealand dollars, which was like, maybe like 1,500 US. And it was already set up. It had gone through God knows how many other backpackers, but it was clean. I looked at it like I would buy any other used car. I've only ever owned used cars, obviously. And it was great. It could fold up, and other backpackers that have had it over the years had added things to it. And later on, when I went to go from Santa Cruz, California, and go across the country, I built my own camper van, and that was outstanding. I had so much fun doing it. And even now, I drive a minivan now. I'm not planning on doing any trips with it. It's tempting to convert it into what I call a stealth camper minivan. That's one of the other plus sides to it. I know a lot of people want to get a big Sprinter van, because they're huge, or an RV. And I've done RVing, and RVing is another great option. It's not bad, but you're limited to where you can park. A minivan can park anywhere. And as long as you don't have too much stuff maybe on the roof or whatever, like when I did the cross-country trip, I remember a few times parking just in some, suburban, side street. And, I'd put the Mylar covers on all my windows. Nobody could see in. I'd usually get in there, around like 9 and then be out by 6. No harm, no foul. I wasn't breaking any laws. I wasn't disturbing anybody at all. And that was great. And that is just the cheapest way to travel, in my opinion. And you get so much out of it. You go where you want to go to. Between that and Couchsurfing, I mean, those two are just great. And a lot of times, too, you can kind of combine the two. When I did get hosted last in Boston, I drove there with my minivan, but I just wanted a shower. I wanted some air conditioning. It was really nice. And, I got a great host out of it. So the minivan life is great. The RV life is great, whether you do a tow behind or, a full self-contained RV. It does cost quite a bit more money, obviously. And it's hard to consider it to be minimalistic compared to the minivan life. If there's more than one of you, especially if you're trying to do the family, I highly recommend that. You can save a lot of money that way. And just look into boondocking. That's what they call it in the RVing community. It's just boondocking. That's just parking someplace so you don't have to pay for a campsite and, being able to stay there for free. I have had some amazing places to stay, and I have had some terrible places to stay. Some really, really sketchy, maybe like a Walmart parking lot or whatever. So all those have their different pros and cons to them. The next one that definitely has some pros and cons is just backpack and just go for it. I actually haven't done any hitchhiking. I know plenty of people that have, and that don't say anything bad about it. I know more people that think hitchhiking is a way to get murdered. And I gotta tell you guys, if you want to get out there and travel, you gotta throw these, 1 in a billion chance horror movie style ideas out the window. It's just not a reality. I always carry a knife just for utilitarian purposes, but it definitely is great for self-defense. I've never had to use it. I've definitely gotten into some altercations in other countries. I got hit by a car in South Africa, and then the guy got out and we squared up. But I've never had to pull my knife. I never felt like I did, because it would be a weapon at that point, and you do want to avoid that kind of stuff. But it's great to know for peace of mind, especially maybe if you're a woman, if you're a female. It could give you a little more peace of mind, as well as carrying maybe like a little keychain mace. Definitely recommend that for people. But backpacking in general is the cheapest barrier of entry to do it. I mean, you're literally putting a sack full of your clothes, and in my case, laptop and spearfishing equipment and way too much stuff. And you just go for it. And that is the cheapest way to do it. But it's usually the most uncomfortable. You'll probably never have any space to yourself. I would recommend a really, really important item to put in your backpack would be a hammock. A nylon hammock takes up almost no room. If you have like a little tarp or like a rain fly, you could then go camping with that. Maybe even if you're just outside of a city. Again, just get creative with it. This whole topic, this is still topic 8, folks, is alternative ways to travel. And you got to get creative about it. Facebook groups are a really, really, really great tool these days. They're like chat rooms, I guess, but, a little bit more secure. Still got to keep your head on your shoulders, suss out who's who. But you can find different groups of other backpackers, people meeting up, places to go to, venues to see, that kind of stuff. Another topic still within alternative ways to travel, buy a sailboat or get a sailboat for free. There is quite a few really, really, really beat up sailboats out there. I was offered a couple for free. I had saved up the money and I didn't want to spend years renovating a boat and going through all this, hardship. I wanted to get up and go. I found it was more worth my time to spend my time working and, making capital, making money, and then go and buy a boat. But a lot of people get a boat for cheap or for free. And once in a while, a decent boat does go up on there. For sure, if I had been younger in my life and they'd offered me that same boat, I would have jumped on it. And it's not super common, but a great idea is if you can get a boat that's, say, below the 30-foot range, and it has a clamp on the back that you can attach an outboard engine onto. That's kind of cool because you could rip out the interior, and some of them have it like this stock, but you could then rip out the interior motor, just have an outboard engine, and really learn how to sail. That's something that, again, if I was younger, I would have loved to have done. But, unfortunately, I got a good boat. So anyway, all those were just some different ways to do it. Just to recap, couchsurfing, workaway, working holiday, crew aboard a yacht, paid or unpaid, volunteer, for any number of different things. The van life, personal favorite, RV life, buy a free sailboat and just sail the heck out of it. Get a backpack, strap it on your back and go. Whatever you got to do, but be creative. None of my trips ever have a real solid plan to them. I just get up and go. So anyway, those were my 8 categories of how I afford to travel around the world. Just a quick recap. Develop yourself, to be a minimalistic and live a minimalistic lifestyle. Saving money is just as important as making money, because if you're not good with your expenses, you could make $1 million a year, but by the end of the year, you could have only saved 1,000. I think a lot of times when I was saving money, like really, really saving, I could put away, I know one year I put away, I think about 23,000 into the bank. I can't stress how many sacrifices I made for that. The fact is, all my hobbies, once I buy the gear, they're then free. Maybe some gas to get to like the dive spot or to the kite spot or the surf spot, but they're all free. Free climbing is another good example of that. But make the sacrifices, save the money, be a minimalist. Do that grind to save up that money. That's number 2. Wake up, work, save, sleep, repeat. It's not fun, but it's the gritty reality of how you got to do it. Number 3, no more living for the weekend. Push further. Delayed gratification goes a long way. Number 4, put yourself out there, make those connections. There's a lot of great people out there, travelers, hosts, who knows? And I've ended up in some weird places just because I was friendly enough to talk to people. Some really, really weird, but really cool places, really fascinating. And that's really what traveling should be about. It should be about new experiences. That's the main thing it should be about. Number 5, uncomfortable travel is cheap for a reason. Kind of self-explanatory. I'd even shudder a little bit thinking of it. I am happy to be on my sailboat and no longer taking flights. But, even that being said, sailing can be uncomfortable sometimes, but it's cheap. Heck, it's even free. Number 6, no more going out to eat, and no more going out to the clubs. Really goes hand in hand with your expenses. That is just a huge, huge way to dump your money, especially if you're buying alcohol while you're out. Which brings me to number 7, no recreational substances. Many of you will have habits for this, I bet, where you are used to drinking, used to having a cigarette or smoking some weed, whatever. And that's fine. And they're great social lubricants, as I've noticed. Just a great way to, get into a conversation and be a little bit more social. But develop yourself. develop yourself as somebody who can get out there and meet people and have the mental fortitude and the confidence to just be yourself. I think it's a great way to go. And then number 8, the biggest one, is just alternative ways to travel. I mentioned quite a few of them, and it's well worth it. And you'll find sometimes that the journey really is as much or more fun than the destination. That's certainly true with sailing. So anyway, moving on to the second part of this, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the travel lifestyle, the adventure lifestyle. And it'd be really important, if this is something you guys want to pursue, think of it as a lifestyle. Don't think of it as a choice. Don't think of it as a weekend only thing. This is something you need to incorporate 24/7, 365. All of my choices throughout the day constantly are, it's like, oh, I really want to go out for ice cream. I think my friends are going to go out. Like, well, you know what? Ice cream costs money. Yeah, I'm going to just, go home and play a video game. Video games on Steam are like 99 cents and they're tons of fun. So it's another little great way to save some money. I don't ever buy new clothing. I don't ever buy a new vehicle. There's just a lot of sacrifices that I end up making. And this is another topic that's a really, really tough one, is kids and significant others. I have traveled solo for most of my adventures because traveling solo affords me the opportunity to not be held back. There's no one to tell me no. I mean, like literally there's nobody. Sometimes Border Patrol, but besides that, nobody else can tell me to not go on something. I don't have any looming responsibilities. I don't have children. I don't have a job that depends on me. I don't have elderly relatives or parents or anyone like that depends on me. But that's all also a downside. I've never been able to depend on anyone else. I've always been independent. I was out on my own at 19, and I've never even been close to moving in with the folks thereafter. And there's nothing wrong with it if you do. There's nothing wrong with having parents, that you are able to, go back and crash on their couch when things get tough. But being that much more self-sufficient and self-reliant has helped me out greatly. And not having any responsibilities has also helped me out. But it does come at the cost of loneliness, of going through it all alone. So that's something else to kind of consider. If you guys, again, look at my website on the FAQ section, I'll talk about a lot of these things. Things like I don't buy jewelry. That's kind of ridiculous. I don't wear any jewelry. Don't go gambling or buy lottery tickets, or as I like to call them, the idiot tax. I never drink soda. If you've ever met me before, I always have a bottle of water, a hydro flask or a Nalgene bottle, something like that. You should stay hydrated. It's just something you should always be doing. When I am traveling, I'm not going to hotels or Airbnbs or anything like that. I recently reflected on how I've been at a marina for a little bit, so I can have my air conditioner plugged in so I don't bake during the Florida summer here. And it's a very nice marina. It's got a pool, it's got a weight room, and it's great. And I realized it's the most stable living situation I have ever had. I've had crazy roommates, especially when I lived in Santa Cruz, California. Pretty weird place. I've done what I've had to just to save money. And there's a reason it's tough to save money. And there's a reason most people don't save money. And it's all these little choices. Actually, I have a favorite quote by Aristotle. We are what we do repeatedly. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. And that's something that's really resonated with me throughout the years. I even put it in my high school yearbook as my senior quote. That whole idea of it's your habits that are going to determine who you are, that day to day, those little decisions that go by every single day. So think of traveling not as a decision, but if you really want to go out far and you really want to do it while you're young, it's got to be a habit. It's got to be a lifestyle. It's got to be who you are at the end of the day. And then there are some people who, have rich parents, and good for you guys. But this podcast isn't for you. This podcast is for the people who, the majority of the people like me who haven't been handed anything. I've had to work for everything. I've had to scrape to get by. But when you do finally get out there, it is so worth it. Give a check out to my my YouTube channel. Just put up a new channel trailer. Gives a great timeline of all the things that I've been doing, where I've been, and I kind of allude a little bit to where I might be going. That will actually be the 3rd episode coming up here for my At the Helm podcast. That'll be episode 3. What are my current and future adventure plans and goals? I'm very excited, and I'm always looking forward to talking about the next adventure. That's really what keeps me going and keeps me making all these little sacrifices. That is why the adventure life is possible for me. I'll talk about what I'm doing right now to get ready for the 2021 cruising season. COVID has definitely thrown a lot of those things up in the air. I'll talk about what I'm going to be doing to change on my boat, as well as some of the potential crew members that I've already gotten applications from. But I'll continue taking applications right up into December probably before I make a decision on who's going to be coming or what the lineup of crew will be. So stay tuned for that. And really I'll be talking about, wherever the wind may take me, because that's the beauty of traveling, that you can just go, that you're not limited, especially with a sailboat. You can really go. I mean, I can go around the world right now if I really wanted to. Should probably get some new sails, but that'll be a story for another time. Anyway, thanks for listening. Again, I'm Adventure Man Dan, and I'll see you on the next adventure. If you enjoyed this podcast episode and were either inspired, entertained, or maybe even you learned something, please consider supporting Adventure Man Dan on Patreon. You'll get exclusive early access to my YouTube videos and epic mentories, Facebook posts, and other content sometimes months before the general public, as well as tons of extra not seen anywhere else. And it can cost as low as $3, but helps me out tremendously. Also, if you haven't yet, check out my Adventure Man Dan YouTube channel for the full videos of my epic adventures, that I've edited so far. Bear with me as I continue to get caught up, but there's some great content on there already, as well as more to come. Or, if you like to do a bit of reading, take a look at the official Adventure Man Dan Facebook page. There's tons of posts dating way back to the inception of Adventure Man Dan, and it's easily the most complete and accurate archive of my adventures so far. And if you still want more, why not follow me on Instagram at adventureman_Dan, where I post some amazing, albeit random photos from my travels around the world. And of course, you can always check out my website, www.adventuremandan.life, as a central resource for all my content and the best way to get a hold of me. Or if you're interested in literally joining the crew aboard Adventureborn, I have a whole page on the website dedicated to just that. Go ahead and check it out. Alright, well, you've made it to the very end. Now get out and go start your own adventure.